Tony, how are you?
Absolutely wonderful. Still reliving last night, which was just a magical night. Not only was it Bob Costas, one of the all-time greats in the booth, but it was also one of the more dramatic games of the year, certainly. And it's hard to wipe the smile off my face. I'm still enjoying every moment of it. The only thing, I look outside, it looks like the end of the world. So hopefully we get this game in tonight.
Hey, you know what? If the world ends after that game and that broadcast, not bad, you know?
We had a good run.
Yeah, you had a good run.
And the White Sox finished in first place.
How often have you had a chance in your life to hang out with Bob and work with Bob? The chemistry was fabulous, and it was really cool to hear, two legends, frankly, get a chance to work together. Could not turn it off all night long and did not.
Well, we worked together back in Philadelphia when Harry had some of his illness problems, and they had 34 different guys that sat in. Bob was one of them, and it was a wonderful experience then. Last night the whole thing was just felt like magic to me because you have over 162 games. You have a lot that almost blend in together because, a lot of people tell you game's a game, but realistically, that was so different last night that I look at it and I thought to myself, boy, if this kid can end it, and I didn't say this because Bob was doing the play-by-play then, if this kid can end it, it is like a Hollywood script. How does this happen? But that's why the game of baseball is so great, because of things like last night.
So, and that kid, I'm sorry, Lawrence, but that kid, the look on his face, my goodness, like the joy that he was having there was remarkable. Frankly, it's as much joy as you have in your voice these days doing these games, Steve. But, how can a real five-tool killer prospect like that, how can his arrival, if he plays well, further impact this bunch that you've been watching?
Well, first of all, think about this. Number one, when Murakami comes back and Teal comes back, you're going to add two monumental bats to a lineup that's already scoring 5, 6, 7 runs a game. The problem with this team has not been the offense because they're putting up a whole lot of runs, and right now there's not a whole lot of problems with them, but it's something that they would like to get reassembled. And those are two key injuries, but they will be back in the not-too-distant future. So as far as the ball club goes, Speaks, you might remember, I think it was 5 weeks ago, I was talking to you on the air, and I said, I can't believe I'm saying this, Speaks, but I think the White Sox have a bona fide chance of getting to the playoffs. And that was really early before they started playing like they're playing now. And I also told you something, that there was another wave of talent coming up, and Braden Montgomery heads the wave of that talent.
Why do you like him as a player? Because you were talking about it a little bit during the broadcast last night, but he seems to have all of the things, including a killer smile and an incredible personality.
I like him as a player for a couple different reasons. First of all, he has a cannon for an arm in right field, and when he starts to hit the cutoff man consistently, the arm is going to be better. But this guy was once a pitcher, and he was timed at 96 miles an hour, so his arm might be as good as anybody around. Also, I always love a switch hitter, and especially a switch hitter with power. I look at the Hall of Fame, the switch hitters with power that actually are in the Hall of Fame, and I think of Chipper Jones, and I think of Eddie Murray. But there's not a whole lot of guys that have power from both sides of the plate, but Braden Montgomery does. He also runs pretty well. He's probably going to pencil out as a corner outfielder in the major leagues, and that's one of the reasons why I think he's going to start in right field a lot. But like so many other guys in the era that's marked Chris Getz's ascension as a general manager, they play close attention to exactly what a guy is, who he is, and how he'll fit on the ball club. And this unit that inhabits that locker room and the dugout on a daily basis, they are very tight. You can win with a team that doesn't get along. The Oakland A's of 72, 3-4 were that kind of a team. They used to fight amongst themselves every day, but they were supremely talented. If you're not, chemistry is very important. This team has the best chemistry that I've ever seen of a White Sox team. That includes playing with them twice in 73 and again 77, 78, and broadcasting here since 2008. I've never seen anything like it, and it shows on a daily basis on the field.
Wow. Why? Why do you think they have that chemistry that you're noticing?
I think it's Will, his coaching staff, and the front office. I think they pay very close attention to who they bring to the organization. Will he fit in? Will he ruin the locker room? Because if you bring a talented guy in who's not a good teammate, all of a sudden all that chemistry that you've built goes out the window. We've seen that a few times here in recent vintage. And so I think that this front office headed by Chris Getz, his coaching staff, the scouts he has around him, I think he's got a really good idea about who he wants to be in that locker room, and the chemistry is off the charts.
Steve Stone joining us here on the Spiegel Holmes Show as we talk about the first place Chicago White Sox. How would you describe what's happened with Miguel Vargas in this season?
Well, number one, a lot of people don't see because they're not privy to the locker room, but Miguel Vargas is one of the leaders of this team. Could be because, he came over from the Dodgers. Could be because he is a bit older than some of the younger guys, but that's just his personality. And unless you're doing real well, it's very hard to be a leader on any team. And I think you've seen from Miguel on a daily basis, he's getting much better in the field. And since he flattened the bat and got a new hand position, he's a meaningful hitter. I mean, he cut the lead in half. It was 4-0. He hit a 2-run homer last night, made some great plays at third base. But more importantly, he's one of the guys in that locker room that everybody looks to, and he takes that role seriously. And there's a couple of those guys, but certainly Vargas is one of them.
Yeah, he is in that corner of the clubhouse there, Steve, where it goes Vargas and then Murakami's interpreter and then Murakami. So Vargas was already a guy who brought that room together quite a bit and was a connector, and he's embraced Murakami and the Japanese interpreter as well, hasn't he?
Well, I talked with Murakami without the interpreter. I just said, "How you feeling?" He said, "I feel great." Big smile on his face. And then I talked to Kyle Teal and asked him how his progress is going, and he hopes to be within a week, 10 days, to be able to go out on a rehab. But he told me something interesting, and he said, Murakami's always on the first bus on the road. He's always one of the first guys into the locker room, and he has a prolific work ethic. So I think it's not going to be 6 weeks. I think it'll be shorter than that. But they do have to make sure that hamstring is 100%, because once he comes back, you want him playing the rest of the season. And so I don't know exactly how people ascend to a leadership position within a clubhouse, but this is such a young team that they look at young veterans, and Vargas falls into that category, to help lead the way. And he's one of those guys. He ascended to that. And I do believe that leading by example is something that Murakami does, because his work ethic is off the charts, and it's going to hold him well coming back from a hamstring injury that was supposed to be 4 to 6 weeks. Hopefully it'll be somewhere in between, and everybody's hoping it's more toward the 4 than it is to the 6 weeks.
There were a couple things that I really liked about last night, and one of them is the White Sox weren't playing the best brand of baseball early on in that game, and yet they were able to turn it around at the end, and that's been a theme for them so far this season. I like that Will Venable, even with the win, even with it being Braden Montgomery's day and his night, was very vocal about that last night, that whether it's the squeeze being messed up or defensive assignments not being taken care of, he wasn't happy. And I appreciate that even inside of an exciting win like that the manager wasn't satisfied.
And that's one of the things, Lawrence, that I've said probably in the middle of his first year, last year being Will's first year. I think he's going to be an extraordinary manager, because the pedigree is there. Number one, he's off the charts smart. You don't get into Princeton unless you're pretty sharp. Number two, his father played Major League Baseball, and Will played Major League Baseball. So he was basically raised in this game. I think his baseball acumen is outstanding. He's secure enough in his position to surround himself with a great coaching staff. We've seen it a lot in various places where the manager or the general manager does not want to have around him guys who are equally as smart or maybe even smarter. But the best leaders, the secure leaders, want the smartest guys in that room with them. And I think from certainly what Chris Getz has done and the people he's brought in, Brian Bannister, Jin Wong, those guys, and a number of other guys that came with him to join what was at the time not a particularly good baseball team. And you see it also with Will. He let go a few coaches, and then he brought in the guys that he wanted to surround himself with, and they're all quality baseball guys. But the insecure executives and the insecure managers never staff their coaching staff with guys who they believe might someday take their spot.
It's interesting. And you wonder whether he learned that from some of the great managers he's worked with. You know, it's seeing Bruce Bochy hire strong guys and trust them.
Right. And that's really part of being a great executive, whether that executive is the manager of a baseball team or the general manager or the assistant general managers. You have to be secure in your knowledge of the game and surround yourself with people that you think are equally as smart, if not smarter than you, because they're going to have ideas and the team is better for it. And I think you're seeing a culture built here with this very young team. And bear in mind, it's a lot more difficult when you have a veteran ball club to try to rebuild a culture from ground up. But when you have a young team, you have a lot of these guys buying into it. And we're seeing the end result. This is one of the, if not the best comeback teams in the major leagues because, Spiegs, nobody told these guys that they shouldn't win. They believe they can win every day. And that includes today against Chris Sale. That includes the Dodgers coming to town. That includes the Yankees for a 3-game series. And it's not lost on the Sox that starting with Philadelphia, which has some bangers, especially at home, Philadelphia, Atlanta, the Dodgers, and then the Yankees. This was a 2-week period schedule-wise from hell. And right now they're 2-2 going into that. So, again, if there has to be a winner of a contest, which is what baseball is all about, nobody has informed these guys why it shouldn't be them.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's quite a stretch here. You think Hagen Smith is going to come up and pitch against the Dodgers? 4 2/3 scoreless a couple days ago. Struck out 92 pitches. He's got 72 Ks in 47 2/3 innings this year.
Yeah, I mean, look, the stuff is outstanding. He came from a high-powered program in Arkansas. They played top-level baseball, and he was the ace of that staff by far. So I know he had some command issues early. He's been working on that. But as far as when he's going to come up, I would have no idea. I just know one thing. With 12 guys making their major league debut for the Sox this year, I think you'd say that the Sox are willing to bring up just about anybody at any time. So I would think he would be the next logical call-up. Tanner McDougal has a huge arm, 101, 102 miles an hour, but he's been nicked up, so he's not going to be ready for a while. But I would think the next logical guy would be Hagen Smith, but we'll have to see if he can go a little bit further than into the fifth inning, 4 2/3, 4 1/3, whatever the case may be. But they want to make sure that he's entirely healthy and ready to go when it is his turn for a call-up, because the one thing his team could use would be one more starter and perhaps one more arm in the bullpen. But before you go out and pay an egregious price for him, one thing to also bear in mind is you don't want to break up this farm system and all the young talent that's come on the major league scene this year.
It leads right into what I was going to ask you about. Conventional baseball wisdom is spend the first 60 games figuring out what you are, spend the next 60 games maybe acquiring what you need, and then you let it ride in those last 42. You've given us a little bit of a window. What do you think this team is, and what do you think they need outside of healthy guys returning?
Well, let's assume that the healthy guys do return, that it's going to be Teal getting a lot of reps behind the plate and Murakami at first base. You look at the lineup then, they don't need anything offensively at that point. You look at perhaps another starting pitcher, perhaps another arm out of the bullpen. That arm out of the bullpen will be easier to acquire than a starting pitcher. But one thing you have to realize is they're not going to mortgage their farm system to get a rental. And also, you're not going to be able to sign a guy who's looking at a $300, $400 million contract, and I'm talking about Skubal. You're not going to be able to re-sign him. And to spend the capital in prospects that you have to spend to get him, I don't think the Sox are there. So Skubal goes someplace else. I got to believe that Detroit is going to trade him because I don't think they can sign him. And those kind of guys who are either egregiously overpaid, have a contract that lasts another 3 years, or is going to be a free agent at the end of this year, those are the guys that are going to be available. That makes a trade really difficult, especially for a meaningful starter, and I'm talking about a 2 or 3.
You got me thinking there, Stoney, so I'll ask you and Lawrence Holmes this. 5 major leaguers have hit 400 home runs as switch hitters. 5 switch hitters with 400 home runs in the history of the game. Stoney, you gave us a couple early on.
Eddie Murray, right?
504 homers.
Chipper Jones.
468.
Mickey Mantle.
536.
Let's see, other switch hitters with power.
Yep, this is where it gets tough.
Yeah, the first 3 are pretty easy. Off the top of my head right now, I cannot think of it.
Guy just made the Hall of Fame a couple years ago. Carlos Beltran. And then the really hard one is Mark Teixeira, 409 home runs, and that's it. That's your 5 switch hitters with 400 homers or more.
Well, I'm not going to tell you that Montgomery is going to hit 400 home runs. But I will tell you something. In an interview that he had when he was a younger player than he is now, it's hard to call a 23-year-old anything but a very young player. But he said his goal was not to be a good player, not to play in the major leagues, not to help dominate for his team. His goal was to go to the Hall of Fame. So we have to applaud, number one, his confidence, and number two, the ability to set a goal, because there is one thing that always comes into play. If you don't know where you want to get, you can't possibly get there.
Stoney, I hope that there's baseball tonight and that you aren't at the ballpark all night waiting for baseball to happen. We appreciate you, and these are fun times for the White Sox.
They are indeed, and I think there will be baseball. Bear in mind, Atlanta comes in no more times this year, and they have a game tomorrow, and the weather is supposed to be worse, so I think we're going to stay here for a while. Roger Bossard, who knows everything about the weather, and he's a man of the sod, tells me that probably 7:30 is a logical start time for this, but we'll have to see if Mother Nature cooperates.
We would like that very much. Stoney, thanks for the time.
Take care, boys. Have a good show.